Hey everyone, Ed40 here with the new Hardcore Nuzlocke for you. This time of Purple Pokémon only in Pokémon Sun. But first though, I just want to say that I am so sorry for the massive delay. I wanted to put out a video for my Banning Half the Pokédex series every couple weeks, and I put out my Emerald video on Halloween. I really wanted the GameCube games to be surprises, but a couple things happened that threw me off. First, I have had some serious recording challenges in this series. I'm working on changing my setup so that I can play both games on Mac without any of the surprisingly high number of thorns in my path. If you've got any advice, please feel free to send it my way, by the way. The Coliseum run is done, and it should come out soon once I shove it into video form. But the XD one needs to be totally reset. On top of those problems, my personal life was hectic for the last couple months, with people staying at my place in finals and family emergencies, making working on anything a real challenge. So it's been a bit of a lag. As a result, I decided to give myself a break from this series and work on this run instead. I have been so excited to do this. I've been sitting on this idea for about a year after seeing Papa C do a similar thing. I'd had an idea of my own for a different kind of Nuzlocke that I'm going to be debuting sometime in the future, but I wanted to do this one really badly, because it's another way to restrict my Nuzlockes while allowing for more type diversity than just doing monotype runs. Plus, given that my name's based on a dye compound, it's only right that I do a color-based Nuzlocke. Now there's a wide variety of purple Pokemon, and we can find 18 different lines here before the postgame, though I can't catch both Ditto and Minior, so it's really just 17. Before we start, here are the rules of the run. You can only catch the first purple Pokemon on each route, though chaining encounters is okay, and even necessary to get some of these Pokemon. I'm playing with the species clause, so no duplicate encounters. If a Pokemon faints, they're dead and can no longer be used. There are no items in battle outside of held items, and their level caps equal to a totem Pokemon or Captain's Ace. Now let's get started! I show up in bright, beautiful Alola, and after a series of cutscenes, I get to pick my starter. None of these Pokemon are ever going to be purple, however, so I'm not going to use them. That said, I'm going to have a lot of grass and ghost types, so I pick Rowlet to approximate my team's experience. Now, this Nuzlocke is kind of funny, because ordinarily I just pick a different starter, given all I have to get through with him. But because I get my real starter at the very last point before the first trial, I'm gonna stick with Rowlet until then. It's tragic my mom thinks he's cute and cool, because he's gonna get tossed out with all the non-purple trash soon. In the meantime though, he gets out to work, destroying whoever's in his path, all the while knowing he'll be discarded as soon as I find his successor. Or if he faints. 6 times. Let me be clear. Every single one of these deaths happens against the head teacher at the trainer school. I decide to set up with workup and then sweep, but 3 Thundershocks sends me below half, so I need to finish by then. And Magnemite is a 3-hit KO with Astonish, so assuming no paralysis or flinch, I'll get to Meowth in the red, and Meowth will instantly KO with Bite. That means I need to get an attempt without a paralysis freeze, and at least a flinch or a crit. This happens on attempt 7, where after a high roll on Thundershock, my second Astonish flinches, allowing me to survive Bite on 5 HP. Now let's talk attempts. I'd already been streaming for 2 hours, and just didn't want to wipe Bully through 2 hours again. So for these games, I think I'm just gonna start new attempts at the point where I can catch my first Pokemon. This happens at the Berry Tree, just outside Verdant Cavern. See, I told you it was gonna be at the very last point, where I find and catch a Crabrawler. This drunken sailor desperately makes me want to name her Popeye, but I can't do that, so I go for Poppy. But Poppies aren't purple either, so I settle for Periwinkle, the only name silly enough to capture Crabrawler's essence. She's got a good neutral nature and the incredible Iron Fist ability, so I'm happy with my real starter. Until she dies, because I accidentally wandered into a battle with the Codney, and paralysis allowed them to set up growth. Let's try that again. And I can't stress enough how lucky I was that Periwinkle 2 also has Iron Fist and a neutral nature, but even better IVs than her predecessor. And now that I've got Periwinkle, I can banish Rowlet to the fiery abyss of the PC. Now, Crabrawler's evolution, Crabominable, is not a purple Pokemon, so Periwinkle's actually capped at this form, but she doesn't evolve until the literal end of this game for some reason. So it doesn't actually affect me that much. There are a few Pokemon this run who have weird usage rules because some form isn't purple. So you'll see how it goes as it goes. This time, I take the utmost care and train her up to a little over level 11 on the Route 2 ambush encounters before heading into the first trial. The trainers in Howley Cemetery are all beatable, but because every single Pokemon there is a viable encounter for me, I don't want to risk accidentally encountering one until later, and my strategy mostly works great. I can outspeed and one-hit both Yungoos, then get the TM for Brick Break, a powerful stab super effective move that'll only make the totem easier. I do have an extremely close call on the Skullgrunt's Drowsy, because I only have Bubble to deal with psychic types, so Periwinkle survives on exactly 2 HP. But after taking out the Gumshoes, Periwinkle is on the cusp of level 13, and I am so ready for this Totem battle. Now, even with a defense boost, Totem Gumshoes still takes over half from Brick Break, but does manage to get a Scary Face in before calling his ally Yungoos. But then I zone out for a second and accidentally attack Yungoos! Both Pokemon outspeed me, and Gumshoes uses Super Ping, which activates Periwinkle's Oranberry before Yungoos uses Tackle to get most of that damage back. But Brick Break gets rid of Yungoos and levels Periwinkle up, giving me access to Pursue. Now Gumshoes decides to go for Leer, letting me easily get rid of him with a final Brick Break. I could have played it a little better, but Crabrawler is always one of the best options for Illumo's trial. And just think, this could have been even easier in Moon. And speaking of Illuma, my Rotom Dex has a crush! A little bit weird, but I support it, I guess. More importantly, beating the trial means that I can catch Pokemon in Verdant Cavern, though not before encountering a shiny Alolan Diglett. Huh. But I finally find a Zubat I can catch and name Fig. And while Fig has the potential to become an incredible Pokemon, a minus attack plus speed timid nature isn't great, nor are his terrible attack, speed, and HP IVs. So this might have some risk. But I train Fig up to level 14, at which point I take on Hau. Now, I tend to run a little long with my videos sometimes, so I don't really want to cover every rival fight. But this is my first one with purple-proof Pokemon, and it's a little tricky. Especially because I accidentally double-clicked the A button, meaning I initiate this fight sequence before switching my party order. As a result, I've got to pivot Periwinkle in to block a KO from an Electro Ball, which does a lot less than I thought it would. Periwinkle takes a Quick Attack next, to just over half, and then does over half with Brick Break. After another Quick Attack activates her Oranberry, I KO Pikachu, but Static activates in the process, so now I want to minimize the damage Popplio can deal. But due to a freeze and my general fear of disarming voice, I'd rather just switch. So I go into Fig, who's fine, but his already terrible attack gets lowered even more thanks to repeated Baby Doll Eyes. So I've got to take the risk and switch back into Periwinkle, who takes a disarming voice, but she survives on 3 HP to allow me to pivot back, and with a restored Fig, a few wing attacks get the job done. That battle was rough. Now, Fig in theory should make Hala easy, but it never quite goes that way, does it? See, even with Oranberry recovery, he wouldn't be able to do enough to solo this fight. That's mostly because Crabrawler is bulky. I'm not seeing a strategy that lets me win cleanly, so I'm gonna need some luck. And the EXP share, which I turned on for this battle. I lead with Periwinkle. This lets me use a workup as Mankey uses Focus Energy. After Karate Chop crits, an Oranberry brings her back over half, and then Brick Break KOs. I have to take a Fake Out against Makuhita, but then Brick Break leaves him in the red as he uses Sand Attack. That's not great, and I'm pretty sure that was a low roll, but what can I do really? Hala Super Potions as Brick Break thankfully connects and KOs. I was right! But now, Periwinkle's under half health on Hala's Crabrawler, so I've got to switch to my now level 16 Fig. And just as I thought, he comes in on Crabrawler's Z move, which only does around a third damage. Because Fig is so weak, Crabrawler outspeeds, only to Leer him, but I get lucky as Supersonic lands. And with that, I can switch back to Periwinkle as Crabrawler hurts himself. I Brick Break as he hurts himself again to go to half, and then one more gets him to a third. But now, I've just gotta hope that Fig can do the rest, so I swap him in, as Crabrawler hurts himself again! That is incredibly lucky. And even when Crabrawler breaks out of Confusion next turn, he just uses Leer, and then Wing Attack I think high rolls to KO. And this win leads me to my next encounter, who's definitely not this Tauros. I head straight to 10 Carrot Hill, where after I encounter a Carbink, I wait until they call a Sableye, who I catch and name Orchid. I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified that he'd have Stall, one of the worst abilities of any Pokemon. But he thankfully just has Keen Eye. And I'm so happy about that I can overlook even the mez of his minus attack nature. And with that, we can go to Hee City on one of the jankest boats I've ever seen, after getting Orchid up to level 16. I did this for a very specific reason. Orchid is the only reason I can comfortably win my battle against Dexia. And with his newly learned Shadow Sneak, this fight got even better. After 3-hit KOing his Slowpoke, Espeon literally cannot hit Orchid, making a fight that once seemed terrifying a piece of purple cake. But getting an Espeon's actually not a bad idea. And after a tougher than I expected battle against Hau that went almost the exact same as last time, but with Orchid, that's exactly what I do with the Daycare Egg. I name him Lilac. His minus speed, relaxed nature isn't that good, But Espeon has always been my favorite evolution, so I think he'll be fine. And then, after meeting my edgy third rival, who even with a purple Pokemon gets essentially soloed by Orchid, I can get yet another Pokemon. After waiting until night, I catch them, and Onion the Morlul is a great find, especially for Lana's trial. With her, I can just put Wishy-Washy to sleep, and then 4-hit him with Mega Drain, never dipping below half health at any point. Somehow this trial, which always causes me pain, is the easiest one yet. And that gets me two things in particular. For the first, I need to give a confession. I have been playing almost the entirety of this attempt on one day, because my next encounter comes from Island Scan. If you don't know how this works, essentially you've got to scan 10 QR codes, and then you're able to access the Island Scan feature. This allows you to access rare Pokemon with rare moves who vary by the day. And mine happens to be on Route 6 during Sundays, so I needed to clear Lana's trial in a day, or else I'd have to wait a week to get him. That made hunting for Onion especially stressful, but I make it with an hour to spare, and find and catch a Gothita, who has an amazing minus attack plus speed, timid nature, and competitive. I name him Amethyst, and I think for now I'm going to take him over Lilac because I really want to see him in action. I've always loved that evolution line, but I never get to use them, so I am so happy here. The second thing I get is a fishing rod, which I can now take back to Kalai Bay and fish up a shelter I catch and name Cabbage. The shelter line always stresses me out because of their horrible special bulk, but this one has an incredible ability in Skillink, so I am so excited to have him. And with Skillink and the Nevermelt Ice in hand, taking out Team Skull is a breeze, even if Hapu just leaves me to the wolves here. I'm digging her purple though. I didn't realize until after I started this game that all the purple clothes were in Moon, so I've just kind of been Ukraine flagging it. And after slogging through the Battle Royale, an often forgotten feature for good reasons, I can continue my catching escapades with Quartz the Staryu, who I get on Route 7. They've thankfully got Natural Cure, and their plus special defense minus defense gentle nature is okay. But the fact that they're not purple until they evolve means I don't really have much interest in using them this run, at least for right now. Now, that said, the same applies to the next Pokemon I catch. A Cubone in Wella Volcano Park I named Wolfsbane. He's got Rock Head, which ordinarily would be awesome, but it's actually worse than Lightning Rod here because when he evolves, it'll turn into Cursed Body, and he also has a horrible modest nature. Somehow Quartz the Staryu has more attack than him, but Wolfsbane is my only fire type of the run, and I've been dying to use him, so I've got to figure something out here. Now, for some reason, I thought I could evolve him before Kiawe's trial, but apparently that's just not true. I actually can't even evolve him until after Olivia, because Alolan Marowak isn't available until level 28, so that might make some of the coming battles a lot harder, but no time to dwell on that now. I've got another fire to put out. That is, after Fig evolves into a Golbat. Now, the big problem with Kiawe's trial is that there are no pauses in between battles, so whoever's out first is out first in all of them. As a result, I decide to leave Fig, but I swap into Orchid to take on the Marowak and the Hiker's Magmar. Orchid thankfully doesn't get burned or anything and ends up a little above half, leaving me to face the Salazzle. Her massive special attack is pretty scary, but there's not much I can do. The reason I lead Fig is because of his speed, but Salazzle outspeeds anyways. But just uses Torment before Acrobatics high rolls to take Salazzle under half. That's actually really lucky for another reason, because it means I can try and flinch the ally Salandit she calls in with Bite after Fig loses a third to Flame Burst. This doesn't work, but he just went for Taunt, so it's chill. And now, if Flame Burst doesn't crit, I think I've got it? It doesn't? And I do! Awesome! That's a huge weight off my back, especially as Fig levels up and survives Salandit's Venoshock on 9 HP. It's time to switch, so I bring out Amethyst, who takes a lot more from Venoshock than I'd like, but he's still over half, so with an Expert Belt boosted Psybeam, Salandit's in the ground, and I just beat easily the hardest boss yet. I didn't have any Pokemon outside of Fig and Orchid who could take a hit from both Salandit and Salazzle, so this was tighter than it looked to say the least. And I'm rewarded for my win by Fig evolving into a Crobat, an incredible Pokemon to have this early on. I also get Charizard Glide, which is great because it lets me get to the Poképelago, where after an afternoon of trying to figure out how Isle of Beans even works, I can eventually find a Pokemon I think will really help out in the near future, Drifblim. I have to avoid the 3 times more common Ghastly, but this works out, and all I had to do was wait a day before Drifblim showed up. Then, after another day, he joins the team. I name him Big Airship of Doom. Yeah, I was a Bloons fanatic as a kid, why do you ask? His minus special attack Careful nature isn't great, but he picked a perfect time to show up. And after Onion evolves, it's time to use BAD in Mallow's trial. So this was kind of an L, and let's talk about why. I had this idea that because BAD had Unburden and Acrobatics, I could give him like an Oranberry or something, and get a speed boost and a massively powered attack. It's not like Lurantis can hit him hard anyways. Except until his Oranberry is used up, Lurantis can just outspeed, and Acrobatics is only doing a quarter. And I could just switch to Gust, but I kept thinking the BAD was just a turn away from getting his Oranberry activated here. And as soon as Lurantis' HP falls under half, she just starts using Synthesis, so that makes things even more tedious. And now it's time to talk about the second problem, the Tranquil. Tranquil's moveset is perfectly designed to cause me pain. I didn't look it up until after she was called out, but as soon as I did, I freaked out. I just assumed I'd be fine, but I just didn't double check. Rock Blast, Pluck, Supersonic, and Screech can all combine to devastate me, and what happens is that Tranquil uses Pluck and just steals my berry. At least I've got Unburdened now, but with Rock Blast lurking, I really would have liked that recovery. And at this point, I should have switched, but I didn't. I was too excited about the strategy and I really wanted to pull it off, so I overcommitted a lot. While I can start hitting Lurantis pretty low and outspeed now, I'm just too worried about Rock Blast to keep BAD in for long. Though I'm kinda weirded out that Tranquil hasn't used it yet. Maybe it's just bad reporting from Bulbapedia or something. And thinking this, I switch into Fig, and this goes fairly unpunished, as I get hit with Pluck and Screech and ultimately wear Lurantis out of Syntheses before KOing with Acrobatics. Ignore BAD's level up for now. Now, the problem is that Lurantis actually outsped and went for X-Scissor, which brought Fig under half, so I need Tranquil's next attack to keep Fig alive. It's Pluck, and we survive on 2 HP! Much closer than I'd like, but I guess it worked out. Let's switch now. I go into Orchid, and Tranquil uses Rock Blast out of nowhere! Okay, guess she really did have it. I played this fight so dumb, huh? But Rock Blast leaves Orchid above half, and he can finally hit a Fake Out for some chip. I go for Rock Tomb, but Tranquil lands his Supersonic finally, so now I'm dealing with confusion. Thankfully, I'm able to use Rock Tomb and just decide that at this rate, it's way easier to stay in and not use my cabbage in the back. And this pays off as he breaks through confusion to land Rock Tomb for the win. That's one of those battles where you don't realize how close it was until you look back, but wow, that was a doozy. At least we're home free and still deathless thanks to Tranquil's many mistakes. And while we'll be off to Olivia soon, there's someone we gotta meet first. A Bounsweet I nicknamed Petunia. She's got Oblivious and a kind of bad timid nature, but I think she'll be a little more useful right now than BAD. Plus, Serena is one of my all-time favorite Pokemon, so I'm keeping her for now. Petunia pretty quickly evolves into a Steenie, and then I've got to force myself to do some plot. And by plot, I mean catching Lily impersonating me. At least she's got the Pokemon color right. Or, at least so I thought. I looked it up when I wrote the script, and I learned that Cosmog's blue? Some Pokemon color decisions just make no sense to me. Like, look at Butterfree. You'd think it's purple, right? Its whole body is purple. It must be. But no, it's white for some reason. Just makes no sense. Smash. Anyways, on to Olivia. And along the way, there are a couple things to talk about. First, Konikoni City has an incredible item haul for me. From the Eviolite to the first spot where I can pick up good offensive TMs, to the Evolution Stone shop, where I can finally pick up a second Water Stone, which I immediately use to get Quartz to evolve, making them finally usable. I have to rappel through Memorial Hill so that I don't encounter a Ghastly. I'll talk more about why in a bit, but for right now, just know that it's important that I don't catch a Ghastly here. Finally, after an easy Plumeria battle, it's time for Olivia. And Olivia is tough. Part of this is because I really should have kept Periwinkle for this fight, but she's just so strong and has access to status moves, so I need to be careful. I lead with Petunia and instantly confuse her Nosepass with Teeter Dance. Nosepass paralyzes, but I'd given Petunia a Cherry Berry, so we're good here. Now, Olivia heals as Petunia goes for Razor Leaf, which doesn't do much, but I try for it again, bringing Nosepass to around a half as Rockslide does a third. Maybe Magical Leaf will do better? I switch to it, and it looks like I'm right as Nosepass is at a quarter. But then Nosepass paralyzes. That's so annoying. I should have just re-upped Confusion, but I wanted to get some damage off badly. And this results in 2 consecutive Rockslide flinches as Petunia drops to red health, so this was very clearly the wrong play. I've got to switch now, and I go into Orchid. I hit a quick Fake Out after a Rockslide, and then KO with Brick Break. That thing was way too bulky. Olivia sends Lycanroc out, which I wasn't expecting. Maybe it's because the AI thought the Bite would be super effective against a Ghost type. Regardless, he uses his non-Z Rock Throw, and I'm so glad he did, because that already did over half of Orchid's remaining health. At least we can respond with a Brick Break to do around a third, but we definitely need to switch now. I decide to go into Cabbage. I don't think he could take a Z move ordinarily, but I gave him the Eviolite, so he's my best bet. And he ends up surviving Continental Crush on just over a third HP! I protect to waste another Rock Throw, and even though he could stay in, I decide to switch to be safe. I go into Onion, who gets hit with a rock throw to lose about a third before protecting to waste another. Then, after getting taken to 17 HP, he uses a Miracle Seed boosted Mega Drain to bring Lycanroc to a quarter. But now, I need to take a big risk. Rock Throw is doing around 30 HP of damage, and Onion's at 35. I need her to take this next hit. And she does! She survives on 5 HP exactly, as Mega Drain gets rid of the Lycanroc. That thing was so scary. I was initially just planning on putting him to sleep before learning he had Vital Spirit. Extremely glad I didn't go that route. With Boldore left, I use a Protect to see what he's going for, and it's Headbutt. I'm a little worried, but mostly convinced I'll outspeed, so I go for Moonlight, and I'm right. And this actually works out great, as Headbutt only does 10 HP and paralyzes Boldore. With that, 2 Mega Drains are enough to end my time on Akala Island. I am so happy to be moving on, though I've got some concerns about the next stage of the game. But something happens at Hano Grand Resort that surprises me. Petunia evolves. I thought I'd have to wait until after Sophocles' trial to get a Serena, but I am absolutely not complaining. I also get to meet Future. It's always a pleasure to meet your heroes. And after chatting him up about Purple Rain, I begin the giant cutscene that leads me to my next battle with Hal. This fight isn't really all that notable, but what is notable is that Orchid levels up past the cap as a result. Now, this actually works out great for me, because it lets me train my B team, including Wolfsbane, who can finally evolve into an Alolan Marowak, a Pokemon I've never gotten to use before, but has always looked so sick. But my path to Wolfsbane's evolution is cruelly interrupted when I battle this random trainer, Collector Todd. I just have Lilac and Periwinkle in my party, outside of Wolfsbane, and he leads with Passimian. This is great for me, because Lilac can just Psychic him into the ground, but his next Pokemon is Oranguru. This seems fine to me because Lilac has Hidden Power Fighting, but I quickly learned that Oranguru has Faint Attack. Oh no! After some deliberation, I decide to just switch into Periwinkle to hit a Dizzy Punch, but Oranguru goes for Nasty Plot. That just made this fight infinitely scarier. I need to land Confusion, and I do miraculously. But Oranguru isn't phased at all as he hits a crit Storm Power to wipe Periwinkle out. Rest well, my little Popeye. But this leaves me in a terrible spot. Hidden Power isn't doing much, and Oranguru gets boosted again. I need some Confusion luck badly. A third Hidden Power sends Oranguru to the red as he Faint Attacks again, which Lilac survives on a fifth. But now I need to take Oranguru out. I click Hidden Power, and he survives on what must be a single HP. I can't believe I'm about to wipe here of all. And Collector Todd throws! That was one of the most harrowing battles I've ever experienced. But with that, Wolfsbane can finally evolve. And in the meantime, I've also gotten to my most fun problem in the game. I feel like this is a lot less fun as a viewer than it is as the person planning these Nuzlockes, but I love trying to maximize all my encounters in these runs. And the spots where you can't do that become sticking points for me in a way that just totally affects my planning. One is the Holy City problem, which I promise I'll explain soon, but is fixable, and the other is Mount Hokulani. Here, I can catch either a Ditto or a Minior, but that means the other is totally inaccessible for the run. I'd prefer Minior here because having a Ditto is just going to totally prevent consistency, and I've always just wanted to use Minior in a run. Now, Minior is 3 times more common, but we need a specific kind here. Essentially, we can only get one with a Violet Core. Assuming all cores show up evenly, that's a little over 4% chance of happening. I do encounter a Minior first, and I decide to hit them with a Hidden Power, thinking it'll do around half. But it doesn't, and Minior self-destructs! I'm glad we survived, but that's infuriating. I don't even know what color core they had, so I don't know if that encounter was even valid or not. I decide to just count it as valid, and then just treat this as a dead route, but I'm so heated about it. At least that's one way to solve my first Mount Hokulani problem. And now for another. Mullane's team is deceptively strong, and above the level cap for the next trial. He's also got great coverage, putting my team of entirely Ghost and Psychic types in a bit of a pickle. Or Eggplant, I guess, if we're going with the theme. I get an old idea, though. Charge Beam strats. Basically, I'm gonna send BAD in with Charge Beam, Rest, and a Chesto Berry. Skirmary can hurt, but then I basically just have to hunt for boosts. I end up getting 3 as Mullane heals, and then Rest, which coincides with Mullane switching Dugtrio in. He has Sucker Punch, so I've gotta be careful. But I think Hex should kill? Except it doesn't, and now I've got to switch to stockpiling as Dugtrio starts going for Metal Claw. I didn't realize until I was in this fight just how dependent I was on Dugtrio not getting boosts or crits, but it thankfully works out okay. And I can finally get rid of him after a couple more hexes. Mullane sends out Metang next, and thanks to Unburden, I totally outspeed and hex one hits. And with the final Charge Beam, Skirmary's down 2 for the win. BAD does level up past the cap, but I'm counting this as a big win considering how much this fight stumped me. Now, the trial itself is tricky. It's difficult on one end to keep everyone under the level cap by the time I get to the totem, though I'm playing a bit fast and loose with that. But it's also hard because all my usable Pokemon, save for Onion and Wolfsbane, are weak against Electric, Bug, or in the case of Quartz, both. I decide to lead with Fig, who I give U-Turn and Roost to in order to allow him to take on the trial Pokemon. I start off with Acrobatics to try and take some health off, and it does around a quarter. Vikavolt then predictably hits Spark, which paralyzes. I think if I did this fight again, I would have used Cross Poison instead to fish for a status, if I attacked at all. Because now, I exposed Fig to a crit for only a little bit of damage. I also would have U-turned into Onion. I go into Petunia here, as Fig thankfully outspeeds and doesn't get frozen up. This strategy was a mess. And what I was thinking was that Trop Kick could make things a little easier for me by dropping Vikavolt's attack, but Spark paralyzes instantly. And then Petunia also gets hit with String Shot, so she just wouldn't have had a chance to survive Bug Bite here. I realize the mess I've made now, finally, and just have to fix it. Because Bug Bite is coming, I decide to swap into Cabbage, who takes just a little under half damage, and suggests Vikavolt is going for Spark next turn. I protect just to see, and now it's time to do what I should have just done in the first place. Swap into Onion. Onion gets paralyzed from a crit Spark, but still has over half health. And Effect Spore activates to poison Vikavolt. Now that he's on a timer, I can protect again as he goes under half. And because he's status, I just Sleep Powder the Charjabug, protect again, and then swap to Wolfsbane. Poison brings Vikavolt to a sliver, and I'm weighing my options, but decide to Swords Dance as Vikavolt throws the last turn by going for a charge. Perfect. And with that, half my party levels up, and I can take out Charjabug with a Rock Tomb. Or maybe I can't. And Charjabug wakes up and hits String Shot, and then outspeeds to hit Mud Slap. But thankfully, I just went for the more accurate Flame Charge, which connects for the win. I'm glad I wasn't punished here, but I really almost let Fig die for nothing. I should have just set up Sleep and then taken care of everyone with Wolfsbane, but alas, I've got an even bigger threat to worry about right now. It's not Guzma, who Fig walls hard. It's the Mimikyu. Now, even though I don't get any encounters, my team does get a couple upgrades in the meantime. First, Cabbage gets to level 32, so I evolve him into a Cloyster after he learns Razor Shot. Second, Amethyst finally evolves into a Gothorita, and it's so awesome that he gets a big power boost and can still use the Eviolite. And he winds up getting rid of all the pre-trial Pokemon with a single Psychic each. But Mimikyu is hard and can't be swept that easily. Last time I Nuzlocked Sun, this trial gave me a ton of trouble, so I want to be a lot more careful here. And after an hour of planning, I develop a strategy I think is going to work, but there's only one way to find out. I lead with Petunia, who gets hit hard with a Play Rough as she lands a Trop Kick to break Mimikyu's disguise and lower her attack. But it's a little too late. Play Rough high rolled, so I can't lower Mimikyu's attack any further, which is a shame because Queenly Majesty would have been incredible against Haunter. Seeing no other choice, I swap into Fig. As Play Rough misses! Oh, that's annoying. I could have kept dropping the totem with Petunia, but it's fine. After Sucker Punch crits, Mimikyu hits hard with Shadow Claw, Steel Wing does a quarter, but gets the defense boost. I try an Acrobatics, but that leaves her around half, as Fig falls under half and gets put to sleep. I decide that there's only one play I can make, so I swap into Onion as Shadow Claw crits. She's under half health now, so I protect just in case, and then risk a crit by putting Haunter to sleep. I'm not punished by this outside of the fact that Mimikyu takes the turn to Mimic Protect, which is annoying, but hopefully it won't be too rough. I swap into Cabbage, who takes a Shadow Claw fairly well before Mimikyu protects next turn. Thankfully, Haunter still hasn't woken up yet, so I Ice-Skull Spear again, and with Skill Link and a Never Melt Ice, Mimikyu is toast. Haunter wakes up to hit a Sucker Punch, but with that, one more round of Ice-Skull Spears ends this trial for good. But I'm not done with Thrifty Megamart yet, because I've got to accomplish what may be the most time-intensive task of my life. This all ties back to my Halloween Cemetery problem. Because every Pokemon there is a viable encounter for me, I've been spending most of my time when planning for this game thinking about how to get every encounter there. Zubat was the easiest because Fig was in the first trial site, but then it gets much tougher. BAD was essentially a lost cause until I realized I could just go to Pokepalago for him. And now, the final two are Ghastly and Mischievous. I could have gotten Ghastly on Memorial Hill to guarantee a Mischievous in Howley Cemetery, but there's a very important reason I didn't. See, this is one of the few Pokemon games where I can catch a Gengar, which I am super excited about. But the only way to get one is through SOS chaining in the Thrifty Megamart. I'm technically counting Gengar as viable, even though I can't encounter one without first encountering a Haunter, because it's all the same battle. But when I was planning this game out, something I didn't realize was how long this was gonna take. Gengar is incredibly rare, so you're stuck killing Haunters, blowing you past the cap on whichever Pokemon you try to use to do the fighting here. All the advice I saw online said it could take hours. Viewer, it took days. I would SOS chain so long that it would bump into things I had to do outside of this, so I would have to quit the game just because I couldn't pause. I know that invalidates a hardcore Nuzlocke, but it wasn't like I could save or anything. It was excruciating, and I was like a demon possessed to encounter a Gengar. Finally, after literally 8 days, like an insufferable Hanukkah or something, I run into a Gengar on Christmas Day. I literally cheered for 25 minutes. I catch her and name her Plum. Plum is immediately going into the party. I cannot stress enough how excited I am. And after I beat Plumeria, I get to finish up my cemetery puzzle by going back and catching Mischievous, who I name Radish. Then, I can get my absolute favorite Pokemon of the run. On Route 17, Gumi has a 10% chance of being an SOS encounter in the rain, and it's always raining here. I'm terrified that this is gonna take as long as Gengar did, but Gumi actually shows up on the second call, and then breaks out of 2 balls to faint from confusion. I was devastated. At least I can catch one later, but then Wolfsbane faints in the Team Skull compound. I was in a sequence of grunt battles, and he was already toxic, but he got beamed with a Shadow Ball. I should have known that he'd fall, but I am still a little annoyed by that. Oh well, I'll switch Cabbage in instead. And even though Fig gets hit to the yellow by a couple sucker punches, Guzma is a breeze. But Gladeon gives me a ton of trouble. His Golbat is great fodder for Eviolite Amethyst, or would be, but after a Psychic, he switches into Sneasel. I can't hit for even neutral damage, so I've got to switch. I go into Cabbage on a feint attack before having to take another. Thankfully, they're both pretty weak, and Razor Shell does over half. After a third feint attack brings Cabbage under half, Razor Shell KOs. But none of this is the problem. The real problem is type Null. I protect to see what they're going for, and it looks like Crush Claw. Cabbage definitely can't tank that right now, so I need someone who can. And that someone looks like Onion, who takes it above half and can land a Sleep Powder after another sensor to the red. Now Onion can just freely heal. Though as she's set to go on the offensive, Techno wakes up to Crush Claw. Thankfully, Giga Drain gets Onion just under half, but I'm not sure what to do. There's only one choice here, and that's the Sleep Powder. Crush Claw takes Onion to 12 HP, but Sleep Powder misses! I try to stall out another PP with Protect, but they go for X Scissor. I need to switch, so I go into Fig, but they just go right back to Crush Claw. Thankfully, Fig's bulkier than he looks now, so he only takes a third. Now he can Acrobatics to do about a third back. Crush Claw brings Fig to a quarter, but I've got Roost on him, so I can regain most of my health, allowing me to outpace Crush Claw damage as I recover. A crit could devastate here, and same with the defense drop, which happens my third time, so I need to swap. I decide to go into Plum after some consideration, but Techno pursues! Phew, that was way too close. Now that Plum's in though, a single Sludge Bomb takes Techno out. It's just Golbat left, so a single Psychic does the job. I nearly lost Fig from that though. What a ride. At least Nanu is easier. He's got a surprising amount of coverage against my team, but Petunia is able to get rid of his Sableye with just 2 Acrobatics. Then, after an Intimidate and a Crunch defense drop, Trop Kick allows Krokorok to survive on a Sliver, but I switch to Cabbage as Nanu heals, and even though he gets hit by a Swagger, it allows a single Icicle Spear to crit, and one-shot Krokorok entirely, leaving just Persian. Expecting a Power Gem, I switch into Amethyst, which was the right read, and then Protect just to waste Persian's Z move. Now that Amethyst is at half health, I switch to Onion on a Dark Pulse. I put Persian to sleep as he uses Power Gem. Then, as Nanu full heals, I Giga Drain, and that actually does half. Huh. One more gets rid of Persian, and now Lily's captured again. Gotta save her and Nebby, so it's time to head to Aether Paradise. Now there's basically nothing to talk about here until Guzma, other than Amethyst evolving. Guzma is easy other than his Mask Ring, so what I do here is I lead with Fig to activate Glissopod's emergency exit before he comes in. Then, I swap to Plum to get rid of Intimidate, though Air Slash does way more to her than I thought it would. Well, I go back to Fig now, and Air Slash does around 40%, so I'm safe to stay in and hit an Acrobatics for the KO. Glissopod comes back in, but if one Acrobatics did half, you can guess how a second will go. Ariados is out now, so predicting a Sucker Punch, I go for a Roost to heal. Then another Sucker Punch does a third before Acrobatics gets another KO. It's just Pinsir left, and Acrobatics leaves him in the yellow, so I have to use another following the double hit. That brings Fig lower than I'd like, but thankfully it all works out and we can just go right on to Lucamine. Now, before I head into her and her giant cutscenes, I realized that Cabbage wasn't doing anything for me this fight, so I brought in Orchid instead. After some training, we're all set. I lead with Plum, who sludge bombs Clefable. Now, Clefable uses Metronome and gets Heat Wave, which is awful, but thankfully it doesn't burn, and one more finishes the job. Miss Magius is next. I don't really have a great switch here, so I decide to go for Onion, who tanks a Shadow Ball above half health. Excellent. I mean to hit Protect, but I accidentally hit the wrong direction and go for Spore, and even though I thought Onion was dead to Mystical Fire, she survives on 2 HP. I guess my calcs were off, but that's incredible. Now comes the next stage of my plan. I switch in Orchid freely, and he hits a pretty good Shadow Ball as Miss Magius wakes up and hits a Mystical Fire. We should be able to survive another though, barring a crit. So I go for a Shadow Sneak, but it doesn't do enough. Thankfully, I get another turn to take Miss Magius out. But Lucamine switches! Now that Beware's in, I have to switch. So I go back to Plum. As Lucamine switches Lilligant in, Lilligant goes for Petal Dance, doing way more than I'd like. But Plum survives in the red, and can now take Lilligant out with a Sludge Bomb. Miss Magius is back, and knowing that she only has attack moves, I go for a quick Sucker Punch to KO. Lucamine goes for Milotic, so I swap to Petunia, who comes in on a Safeguard. Milotic outspeeds and hits Hydro Pump, but it only does under a third, and then Chop Kick does over half, so after a weak flail, another gets the job done and it's just Beware. And since she can't hit ghosts, she's totally free for Plum. This fight wasn't terrible, but Lucamine's Miss Magius is terrifying to me. At least we're on to the final stretch now. Well, after another wave of cutscenes. And now that we're at Seafolk Village, I can get a new encounter I physically cannot kill before catching. An Aerodactyl I get as a gift named Barney. Barney has kinda rough IVs, but an amazing ability in Rockhead. He's going on the team and replacing Fig for now, though that could change soon. I also catch a Granbull right after, who I name Lavender. She's got a bad rash nature and quick feet, so I'm not planning on using her long term. And then, after getting peeped on by this random woman, I make my way to Executor Island, where once I get a Sunflute, Sliggoo has a 10% chance of being an SOS encounter in the rain. I finally catch one, just using my Master Ball, and name him Eggplant. Eggplant has the less good hydration and single-digit IVs in everything but speed and defense, but a great timid nature. Gudra's my absolute favorite pseudo-legendary and one of my favorite Pokemon ever, so there's no way I'm not using him. Now, there's a big problem here, which is that Hapu's level cap is significantly higher than the final totems. So I decide to repeat my Ulula solution and divide into 2 teams again. Getting half my Pokemon to level 48 takes a few hours of grinding, but the plus side is that after Radish gets to level 46 and learns Perish Song, I can just use a Dusk Stone to evolve him and finally make him usable. So my final team for Hapu is Radish, Onion, BAD, Petunia, Cabbage, and Quartz. Because I divided everything roughly by type, Hapu isn't that hard. I have pretty good counters to everything but her Mudsdale. I lead with Cabbage, who takes out Dugtrio with a Razor Shell after she sets up Sandstorm. But now Mudsdale is in, so after a Protect, I decide to swap into BAD to take the Z move, and my prediction is right. Shadow Ball does about a third, but Heavy Slam does just under half. I decide to risk it and go for another, but Heavy Slam just KOs outright. Oh, that was really stupid. I should have just switched BAD out, but now at least I can cleanly bring Radish in the Sandstorm ends. With an Energy Ball, Mudsdale is gone, and for some reason Gastrodon is out next. I'll definitely take it. But Energy Ball doesn't quite KO, and Radish takes a Muddy Water for a third as a result, but thankfully no accuracy drop, and after another, it's just Flygon. I can't really explain what I'm doing here, but I just keep setting up Calm Minds to try and stall out for Perish Song. My brain was just not right this battle. But I finally use it, and then swap into Onion freely on the Dragon Breath. After a weak Earth Power, I hit Spore. And Hapu uses her final turn to heal Flygon's sleep before Moonblast takes him to the red. And even though he survives, Perish Song gets the kill, beating the final grandchild of the run. I'm so sad I lost BAD, but my team has grown fierce. So then, how did things go with my second group? Well, it takes a village of trainer dodging and EXP management, but we get there under the cap. I lead with Lavender, who gets protected, so Play Rough doesn't work. But then, after Flash Cannon does a third thanks to her Babiri Berry, Play Rough crits to KO. I don't think it mattered, but I'll certainly take it. And now that Hakamo is left, I just switch into Orchid, who crits with Psychic for the win. A lot of crits that battle, huh? At least the trials are over. And afterwards, while training up for the next Lucamine fight, I level up Eggplant on Executor Island in the rain, and he evolves into a Goodra for my final evolution of the run. And with that, it's time for Lucamine. Going into the smallest, most linear world I could even imagine, I knew that the stronger versions of Lucamine's Pokemon with stat boosts would be even tougher to deal with than last time. But my team's a little better now, so let's see how this goes. I lead Plum, who uses an Expert Belt boosted Sludge Bomb to take Clefable just above half, but it poisons! Clefable responds with a Moonblast, which gets the drop. But after 2 more Sludge Bombs, Clefable is down and I'm on to Mismagius. I swap into Onion, who takes a Pain Split. And then I use Spore to put Mismagius to sleep. Now I swap into Radish. I set up a Calm Mind as Mismagius wakes up to use another Pain Split? What is going on here? I'll definitely take it though, but Mismagius switches to Mystical Fire. At least I'd set up another Calm Mind, but now I just need to attack. So I start hitting Shadow Balls, and after another Mystical Fire, a second Shadow Ball means Mismagius is done and Lilligant is in. So I swap to Onion again on a Leech Seed, and hit a Moonblast as Lilligant starts using Petal Dance. Now that Lilligant's stuck, I can just switch to Eggplant and hit a Dragon Pulse for the KO. Beware's up, and since she can't hit Radish at all, I just switch him back in and set up 6 Calm Minds. After that, Energy Ball KOs, and my Lodic falls right after for the win. It just goes to show you should never disrespect the power of Purple. And after I'm forced to catch Nebby, who's not even pretending to be Purple anymore, I bludgeon Gladeon for the final time. This battle is a lot easier than last time, and the only real problem that shows up is when 2 crunches from Silvally send Barney to the right. But he's able to pull through to take Silvally out with the Stone Edge, making the rest of this fight trivial. After I crush Hal for the final time, it's just the league left. This is my final team. I had a lot of great options, but I think this gives me the best coverage overall. And to start, I'm going right for my real champion battle. Against Acerola, I can truly see who's the better purple trainer. I lead with Onion, who gets faked out by Sableye before hitting herself in confusion after Sableye uses Confuse right next turn. Okay, not a great start. But after Shadow Claw doesn't crit, Spore connects, followed by Moonlight, and we're right back in this. Moonblast manages to KO Sableye, but I could have kept going if Onion had hurt herself again. Frostless is up next, and after a Yachi Berry weakens her Ice Shard, Onion snaps out of confusion to land Spore. With Frostless asleep, I switch into Cabbage. Razor Shell does under half, but thankfully, Frostless stays asleep. But that range is bad though, so I decide to make a bit of a desperate play. I go for Icicle Spear, but Frostless survives on a Sliver. I know what's coming next, so I Razor Shell as Acerola heals. Thankfully, this does over half, so one more gets the KO, but in the process, Frostless confuses Cabbage, and with Dumb Eyes in, I don't want to risk him, so I swap directly into Eggplant on a weak Energy Ball, and outside of a Slam, 2 Ice Beams are enough to get the job done. Palossand comes out after, for some reason just decides to go for Iron Defense, so that was free. Isorola's last Pokemon is Drifblim, and while I'm more in BAD, Ice Beam isn't doing a very satisfying range, especially after Drifblim sets up Amnesia. I decide to switch just in case after she sets up Focus Energy next. I go into Onion, who takes a crit Ominous Wind. Thankfully I'm not in KO range from another, because that repeats before I can finally Spore. That was terrifying. It's like that Drifblim is in the top percentage of Drifblim. But I switch into Cabbage, no harm, no foul, and an Icicle Spear gets me a pretty dominant win. Now nobody can ever say I was the second best purple trainer. Now, next up is Kahili, and here what I do is I lead Cabbage, who gets outsped with a Steel Wing, but gets to use Shell Smash. One more Skarmory sets up Spikes, and it's go time. Cabbage cleanly outspeeds and one-shots her entire team. That's what she gets for being the most random Elite Four member. 2 to go. Third is Olivia, who I can't quite figure out. I decide to lead Eggplant, but realized after I started the battle that I forgot to teach him Rest. Oh well. Power Whip connects, but Relicanth survives on a Sliver. That's horrible because he gets to set up Yawn. At least after Olivia heals, another Power Whip gets the KO. But now, I'm gonna need some luck to have Eggplant be usable again. I swap into Onion on a Moonblast and set up Spore, but Carbink is able to get Reflect up in the process, so that's not great. Either way, I'm switching to Cabbage. Here, Carbink stays asleep long enough for me to set up 2 Shell Smashes, but Reflect still isn't gone. I have to go for a third. And here, Carbink wakes up and Power Gems Cabbage. But he has a Focus Sash, so he survives on 1 HP and takes Carbink out next turn with an Icicle Spear. Lycanroc is out next, and one more Icicle Spear gets rid of him too. But now, Probopass is in. I'm not totally sure Icicle Spear will KO, so I swap to Onion. Giga Drain doesn't do very much, and after Probopass paralyzes her and sets up Sandstorm, I need to try something new. I decide to go into Barney, but Ironhead does almost nothing. And once Sandstorm subsides, I don't want him to take a Power Gem, so I swap back into Onion as Probopass wakes up and sets up Sandstorm again. I decide this time I'm gonna wake Eggplant up, so after another Spore connects, I swap him in. This begins a long and tedious process of trying to wake up, but after about 3 turns, Eggplant wakes up first, and Aquatail takes Probopass to a third. Probopass wakes up and uses Power Gem, but an Aquatail next turn KOs. Last is Golem. I decide to go for Power Whip, and that did way less damage than I thought. Let's try Dragon Pulse, which keeps Golem alive on his sliver. I go for Dragon Pulse again, but Olivia heals. There's not much I can do here, so I need to switch. Eggplant's health is just too low. Expecting another Steamroller, I swap into Plum, who takes it pretty well. All I need is one Shadow Ball. But Golem survives and hits Thunder Punch, which paralyzes. Do not freeze now, Plum. And with a Sucker Punch, Golem is down and it's just Hala left. And with Hala, Onion is the obvious choice to sweep, but I need to do some work to get her in first. As a result, I lead Orchid. I fake Hariyama out and then use Psychic, but Hariyama uses Knockoff, which doesn't affect Orchid too much, thankfully, since I didn't need the spell tag. But then, another Psychic gets the job. And Hariyama uses Fake Out? Very weird. Next turn, it happens again as I KO, which wouldn't have happened without the drop, but I'm so confused by the AI there. I guess it just stops going for Knockoff if there's no item, but that's such a bad choice. Anyways, Primate is next, so I decide to swap early, which works out thanks to Orchid's bulk being enough to withstand a huge pursuit. Onion's time to shine is now, and here, I put Primate to sleep before moonblasting him away following the Moonlight, but now, Hala's big threat is in. Crabominable has a terrifying Ice Hammer, so I attached a Yachi Berry to Onion, which is why I needed to lead with Orchid. This means that Onion can tank a single hit at a 3rd health, hit Spore, heal with Moonlight, and then Moonblast Crabominable away. Except he survives in the low yellow! Hala heals, so I have to use Spore. Except I didn't realize I was outspeeding after Ice Hammer, so this actually wasn't necessary at all. Regardless, another Moonblast leaves Crabominable in the red, so Hala uses his final full restore. And with that, 2 more Moonblasts get the KO. Beware is it now, so I put him to sleep to heal up, and then Moonblast away. Finally, it's just Poliwrath left. After Waterfall, I Spore him and start Giga Drain until I get to half health, but Poliwrath wakes up. Thankfully, Waterfall doesn't flinch though, averting any crisis as Moonblast KOs for the win. It's time for Kukui. I have exactly 6 rare candies left, so I distribute them as evenly as possible before heading in. Just 1 fight left. Atop the league, we begin. Lycanroc hits a Stone Edge, thankfully much better than a Stealth Rock, as I use Spore with Onion. I Giga Drain next, leaving him in the red. Knowing a full restore is coming, I Spore again and then Giga Drain back to the red, before deciding to go for another, which thankfully KOs. Braviary is in now, so I swap to Cabbage as he sets up Tailwind. Thinking I'll get outsped, I use Shell Smash, but I actually outspeed before he uses Whirlwind. I guess I just don't understand how Tailwind works. I swap Cabbage back in. Then I Protect to stall out the Tailwind after tanking a Brave Bird, but the next turn he outspeeds to use it again? I really just don't understand this move. Icicle Spear gets rid of Braviary though. Now Incineroar is in. I decide to Protect so I can just keep stalling Tailwind out, and hopefully block a Z move, but he just goes for Cross Chop. Oh well. I use Razor Shot, which does around half before Cross Chop connects to bring Cabbage to 10 HP. I Protect again here, and looking back, I have no idea why, because he could have just used his Z move, which would have killed Cabbage. But at least I'm unpunished, I guess. And next turn, Tailwind's gone, and I outspeed to crit Incineroar, taking him out. That's one of Kukui's biggest threats down. Magnezone is out now, and this is another huge threat, so I need to make a big sacrifice here. I have Cabbage make one last Razor Shell, which gets the defense drop as Thunderbolt KOs Cabbage. This beautiful bivalve carried me throughout the whole run as my offensive powerhouse, and I will treasure him dearly. I hope you're clamping away in peace, bud. But now, thanks to Cabbage's death, I can bring Barney in, who can now take Magnezone out with a single Muscle Band boosted Bulldoze. One more huge threat off the board, and now Ninetales is in. She uses Blizzard, but it misses, so Ironhead gets the KO cleanly. Kukui just has one Pokemon left, and it's his scariest one, Snorlax. I think there's only one thing to do. I Stone Edge, doing almost half. I Snorlax Heavy Slams to bring Barney to the red. I use Iron Head to try and get the flinch, but to no avail. Crunch KOs. Rest well, Barney. I guess you're a fossil again. But now, I can bring Onion back, Spore, and swap to Eggplant. Except Snorlax immediately wakes up and hits a hard body slam! That's not good. I decide to try and Flamethrower to get some chip and a burn, but it doesn't do much as Body Slam paralyzes this time. I have to swap back into Onion, who doesn't take one great, and then set up Toxic. I try and get a little recovery damage with Giga Drain, but Kukui heals outright. I'm in a pickle here. There's only one good play left. I have to Toxic. It lands as Snorlax Heavy Slams to get rid of Onion for good. Farewell to one of my oldest and best Pokemon. Onion was probably my most indispensable Pokemon this entire run. But now, I can swap to Orchid, who wastes a turn with Fake Out. Then, I can protect for some more toxic damage. Snorlax is at half now, so I can hit him with a Brick Break to take off a quarter, letting Toxic polish him off for the win. And just like that, I beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Sun using only Purple Pokemon. That champion battle was so tough, but it feels amazing to have pulled through. This was a really fun run, and a big part of what made it such a blast was how unique all the encounters were. Gen 7 probably has the most unique encounter systems of any Pokemon game, so getting to plan and catch as many Pokemon as I could was a blast. Whether it was the grass, berry trees, a gift, fishing, SOS chaining, island scan, or Pokepelago, the latter two of which I had never used before. I loved how diverse my team was, and how I was forced to use so many different Pokemon at once in the back half of the game because of the level caps. Getting to use Skill and Cloyster in competitive Gothitelle for the first time, as well as Gengar and Goodra, was just an absolute delight, and I loved how customizable my strategies could get in the late game. The more recent Pokemon games give you so many different ways to explore winning, whether it's through new TMs or a wide variety of items, so getting the chance to play around was a blast. And that's a wrap. Please feel free to give a like or subscribe to my channel. If you have any suggestions or things you'd like to see me do, please feel free to leave a comment, at me on Twitter, or email me with your suggestion at ed40plays@gmail.com. I'm gonna do more color-based runs after I finish my Banning Half the Pokédex series because this was a romp. I'm sorry again for the massive break. I don't think that's gonna happen again anytime soon, so look out for a Coliseum Nuzlocke video in the next couple weeks. Catch you all there!